Hello, everyone. My name is John Pavlovitz. I am an author and pastor, and it's a joy to be with you today. I wanted to take just a few moments and share some thoughts about the place and time in which we find ourselves. Ever since the restrictions and the cancellations and the changes began a few weeks ago, back before when we used terms like social distancing and self-isolation and flattening the curve, we've all been asking the same question. When will things be back to normal? Well, they won't. Returning to normal, that idea, would involve some precise dividing line by which we could delineate the end of this time and the beginning of something else. And it would suggest that if there was such a line, that we could cross it without carrying these days with us. But that, of course, is an impossibility. We can't ever leave anything fully behind, can we? We're all walking around right now with the emotional souvenirs of every day we've lived here. Our experiences, they all renovate us and reshape us. We absorb and internalize everything that happens to us. It gets stored up in our minds and in our bodies and in the ways in which we think and feel. So I want to begin by asking you a question. How are these days renovating you? How are you being reshaped? What new thoughts are you thinking? What new patterns do you see developing? Yes, hopefully soon the spread of this virus will slow and we're going to see some of the recognizable rhythms of our life return again, going to school or to work or to sporting events or being able to find toilet paper without having to offer up an organ on the dark web, right? But none of those activities will go unchanged because we're not going to go unchanged. For months, we're going to be contending with social distancing. We'll likely have to be wearing masks in public, and large events will include all kinds of safety protocols that we've never had to contend with before. We'll probably approach air travel very differently and general public spaces differently. If we're responsible human beings, we'll all have to change our habits and use caution until vaccines are available. Many of us are going to have to find new jobs or alter our spending habits. We may need to reschedule plans that have been interrupted. We may have to catch up on a lot of things that we've missed. And we're going to have to do all of these things while heading quickly into the most important election of our lifetimes with all the upheaval and turbulence that brings. So normal, I'm not sure, is really an option right now. I was talking to a group of friends on a video gathering, and one of them said, I don't think we've begun to reckon with the PTSD counseling that we're all going to require. Unpacking the fear and the grief and the relational collateral damage of being in close quarters with people or being separated from people. So normal, or the way we think things used to be, isn't really a possibility. But it doesn't mean that things can't be really, really good. This week I had one of those bittersweet moments that you get as a parent from time to time. I got to see my children transforming in front of me, particularly my 10-year-old daughter. I walked down the stairs and she's sitting on the couch, and the change I saw in her from the night before, it took my breath away. Like she'd grown a couple of inches overnight, right? I could swear her face looked more mature than the little girl I'd tucked in 8 hours earlier, and in ways that only I was close enough to notice. She's becoming a young woman, and in a photograph flash there on the stairs, I saw it. And it reminded me that even though we're housebound and despite so much of our ordinary routine being interrupted and despite the current normal feeling anything but normal, life is still happening and I need to be present for it. She's still my daughter and I'm still her daddy, and we're living out our story in real time. Our family is not paused in any of the ways that matter. We're still loving and learning and laughing and crying and sharing. So for her and for my son and for my wife and my mom, my siblings, my family and friends and church and readers and neighbors, we have to keep living. those relationships are still moving. We are still moving, despite the fact that we may feel as though we're stuck in place. It's interesting that in days like this, things become valuable that we didn't realize were valuable. I bet you're thinking about toilet paper differently than you used to, or hand sanitizer. In these days, our priorities begin to shift, and in times like these, we clarify the things that matter to us, our feelings of our needs for security, our needs for sustenance, our desire for community, knowing that we're safe. And in days like these, so filled with worries about what's coming, it's easy to believe that we're all in some holding pattern right now, right? A massive waiting room where we're busying ourselves and biding our time until this nightmare fog clears and we can begin to resume living again. And it's tempting to imagine that everything in our lives is on hold until someone gives us the all clear to move. But if we do that, if we keep our attention on when this crisis will end, we're going to miss our lives currently unfolding. We'll miss a million holy moments that we will never get again. The place that we are being invited to live into right now. We can really easily sacrifice the present we have in our hands on the altar of the future that we're waiting for. And in these times when you can dwell so much on what we feel is being taken away, we can miss what we've been given. We're getting things right now that we would never have any other way. We're getting time with our children that we'd never otherwise have, to sit with them and to not be hurrying from task to task and quickly into the car for the next drop-off. We can linger with them and really see them and notice how they're changing. And whether we like it or not, we're getting a lot of time with our spouses and our partners and our siblings, days where we can stop and have a meal in the middle of the day, or we can steal away for coffee late at night, where we can have conversations that sink deeper than the surface level small talk that we often default to. We can talk about the depths of our hopes and our fears. And we're getting white space that we'd never otherwise get. And we can fill that time with beautiful, joyous, life-affirming acts. We can pick up the guitar again, or resume writing the book that we'd shelved, or break out the business that we dreamed of launching. We can text friends and who we've lost touch with. We can check on our neighbors. We can connect with people on social media to make sure everyone feels a little bit less alone. We can exercise and eat and take care of ourselves and rest in ways that we might neglect when our calendars are again filled and our agendas are again bursting to overflow. I make bread now. I bake bread. I didn't do that before. I decided in the middle of this time that I was going to bake bread because it was difficult to get bread. So now there's a phrase I say, I've got bread proofing. I'm 50 years old and I never said that statement in my life. But now that bread baking ability, that love, is something that's been created in this time. So for you, I'd ask you to lean into the things that you're learning, that you're finding out about yourself. Yes, these days are disorienting and they're inconvenient, but they're not uneventful days. Life is happening around you right now. Your children are growing at lightning speed, and your relationships are waiting for you to be present. Your mind is not quarantined. Your mind is still free to create and to plan and to dream, and your gifts are fully accessible, and you can still wield all of them. You and everyone around you is getting a day older, so there should be an urgency that rises up in you to make sure that you spend this day well. I think the terrifying reality of this season is realizing how fragile life is and how quickly it can dissolve. And if there's anything good that can be found in seeing so many people leave this place with such velocity and randomness, it can be that we make sure we don't procrastinate living another minute more. Today can be the day where you do things that you can only do in this day, because there will be another day when you can have more of a regular routine, but there'll be a trade-off. You won't be able to do what you can do today. You'll never get this day again. It would be a tragedy if you wasted it waiting to be released by someone else. So right now we're inconvenienced and we're redirected, but we aren't stopped. We may be physically separated from people, but we are connected in ways that transcend geography. We're frustrated and tired and worried, but we're alive, and that's a pretty important detail to miss. So as much as you can, I would hope that you would stay home and stay safe in this quarantine, but as much as you can, keep living while you do. Do what you're able to do and cultivate gratitude and be present and show compassion and use generosity. Because this day isn't a place to wait, it's still a place to live. So ask yourself those questions. What are you learning right now? What are you finding out about yourself? How are your relationships changing? What new skills have you acquired? What old loves have returned to you? What does lack feel like to you? Where do you find abundance? Normal is not going to happen. We don't ever get normal. We only get the present. And you still have that. My daughter, she gave me one of those moments when children have those aha moments that adults often don't think about. But she came in and she said, "Dad, do you know that the second that you say the word now, it's already in the past?" She said, "Now, now, now." She said, "Those are all gone." And I said, "Yeah, it's really hard to live now. Here and now, that intersection is a really tough place to stay, especially in moments like these." See, we really can't pinpoint when all of this began, right? There wasn't some singular moment, really. It was just a series of revelations and news that we received and changes in the restrictions that we had. And so it's not going to simply end either. There's no line between this time and the coming seasons. There are just the realizations and the realities and the series of connected moments that we get to live and choose in. A lot of people have changed, and they're not going to be changing back. Communities have been altered, and they're not going to be what they were. Because regardless of what is happening, and however normal we begin to feel, something else is going to come and interrupt our plans and our comfort and our security and our routine, and we'll have another series of presents to choose within. So I don't think normal is what we want. I think normal is a relative term. While we're not going to be the same for a long time, really, if ever, we can be better. We can come through this season of our life with a different appreciation for the people we love. We can find joy in the simple things that we'd forgotten were so readily available to us. We can have a greater compassion for the pain of the people around us. We can aspire to live more intentionally, given that we recognize how fragile life is. So I'm not sure normal is an option, but if we do this right, we can embrace the new abnormal together. So my hope for you is you will be leaning into these days with a sense of expectancy, a sense of optimism, and a sense of hope. Because the truth is, you never had normal, and you always had this present moment in which to live. So with all the fear, with all the unknowns, with all your worry and your indecision, with all that feels different, do your best to choose well in this moment and have gratitude. Because your life is still happening, and I don't want you to miss it. Peace to you, my friends. Be well today.